leave
special.
him because I couldn't reconcile then the other half of the day, those behaviors. But what it allowed me to do was I escaped in my mind and I found these archetypes around me that were saviors to me. So, I grew up in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I grew up right at the point where the telecom boom was happening. Companies like Nortel and Newbridge Networks and Mitel, Bell Northern Research, these were all built in the suburbs of Ottawa. And so there were these larger than life figures, entrepreneurs, Terry Matthews, Michael Copeland. And so I thought, I'm going to be like them. I would read Forbes magazine. I would read Fortune magazine. I would look at the rich people on that list and say, I would be like them, not knowing that maybe that's not who you wanted it to be, but it was a lifeline. And it kept my mind relatively whole because I could direct my ambition in a direction. And so why that's so important, just circling back to this, is I didn't have a group of friends who were like, I'm going to go to community college. I didn't have a group of friends that said, well, the goal is just to go to university, get a simple job, and join the public service, have a good life. And so because I had no expectations and I was so afraid to venture out of my own house, I never saw what middle class life was like. And so I never aspired to it. Now, if I was close to it, I probably would have aspired to it because my parents in their best year made 32,000 Canadian together. And if you're trying to raise a family of 5 people on $32,000, it's a complicated job. And most of the time they were probably making 20 something thousand. And I was working since I was 14. So I knew that our station in life was not the destination. We had to get out. But because I didn't have an obvious place, it's not like I had a best friend whose house I was going to and I saw some normal functional home. If I had had that in this weird way, I would have aspired to that.
What was the worst job you had to do?
The best job, but the worst job, was I worked at Burger King when I was 14 years old, and I would do the closing shift. And that was from like 6 p.m. till about 2 in the morning. And in Ontario, where I lived, Ottawa borders Quebec. In Ontario, the drinking age is 19. You can see where I'm going with this. The drinking age in Quebec is 18. And that year made all the difference to all these kids. Mm-hmm. And so they would go get completely drunk. They would come back. They would come to the Burger King. You would see all these kids you went to high school with. Can you imagine how mortifying it is? You're working there in this getup. And they would light that place on fire, vomit everywhere, puking, pooing, peeing. And when the thing shuts down at 1 o'clock, you got to clean that all up, all of it, changing the garbage, taking it out. It was a grind. And it really teaches you, okay, I do not want this job. I don't want it.
But it's funny that didn't push you towards the stability and the security of the middle class, life.
I didn't have any good examples of that. I didn't have those around me. I was so ashamed. I could have never built a relationship where I could have seen those interactions to want that. And so my desires were framed by these 2 random rich people that lived in my town who I'd never met, and what I read in magazines about people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett.